you guys have some clarity on what you're building. So what will you guys do if it doesn't work? Everyone finds like that peer group, we kind of felt uncomfortable if we're not doing something productive. Biggest learning right off the bat, just accepting that you as entrepreneurs are not exactly what you're building at that moment.
Hi, my name is Amrit. We've heard that IIT Madras is the best place to build. So we've come down to the Sudhan Shankar Innovation Hub. We want to meet some people. These are builders. We want to talk to them about their work and also ask them what makes IIT Madras the best place to build. Hello and welcome to the Best Place to Build podcast. Today we are sitting with Prajwal, probably our youngest guest so far. He's only 24. He is a co-founder at one of the newer, hotter startups from IIT Madras called Clueso. Prajwal, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me, Amrut. So excited to be back in space.
Let us start. Oh yeah, and we are at CFI and you were out of a CFI club.
Yeah, for a long time.
Let us start with what Clueso does.
So Clueso helps product marketing, customer success teams at SaaS companies create high quality videos and documentation. So how it works is they start with a very rough raw input. This could be a video recording, it could be like some sort of slide deck. And what they want to get done is turn this into a really high quality video that they can share with their customers, have it be engaging, have it reflect their brand. So what they do with Clueso is they simply upload this raw input and our product take care of everything else. So we transform that video into something that looks much more professional by adding all sorts of video effects, things like zooms, blurs, text boxes, rectangles, and branding. So we add like the company logo as an intro slide, outro slides. And perhaps most importantly, we solve one of the most challenging aspects of video production, which is audio. So we completely swap out the audio track of the original video and add an AI generated audio track where the customer has full control over the script. So the AI rewrites it in a way that already makes it more engaging, but whenever they want to make a tweak or add a point that they missed, they can do that instantly without any issues and have the audio and video sync up perfect.
Sure. So this is meant for, say, for example, I had a SaaS platform that helps customers with their help desk or something like that. And I made this tool. I'm communicating with my customer. My customer just tell me how it works.
Exactly.
I have to send him some articles or videos, and then it takes me effort to make those videos, but your tool makes that effort much simpler.
Exactly. So what the use case you described is customer education, where there is someone who's possibly bought your tool and needs to go more in depth into how exactly do I use it? How do I get the most value out of it? That is one big use case. The other big use case is product marketing, where you want to make really catchy, peppy content that you can use, whether it's an ad, social media posts, those kind of things, to drive people to come and even look at your tool or consider adopting that tool.
And it's interesting because most SaaS companies start with a very small team, like 5 people, and then when they grow their engineering teams first.
Right.
And the marketing team comes much later.
Right.
And so in the period where you're still growing and you're still like maybe 200 people, 300 people, engineering team, or even if you're larger, your tool will help the engineers do it themselves.
Exactly right. That's kind of where we started from, like from the perspective of a small team which doesn't have in-house expertise on what should that content even look like, what do we describe, how do we adhere to technical norms and documentation as well. So it was designed originally primarily for these kind of people, other founders, people who don't have expertise in this domain but really need to get this content out super fast. But then it quickly transitioned into being a tool that also helps experts really well because they know what they want to do. It's just that their workflow to do it is really painful, just really long. So that's both sides of the coin.
Cool. We didn't mention it, but it sounds obvious. It's automatic. Like
Right.
it does the whole on its own.
So one of the internal mottos that I really love that we have at Clueso is we're building the world's best video editor and we're also making sure you never have to use it. So everything we do is customizable, but the aim is that AI creates everything exactly as you want it. So of course, that's like the 100% goal, right? But realistically, you'll get there like 90%, 95%. So you need that control for the customer to actually be able to go and tweak whatever the AI has produced. Sure. Yeah. The vision is that, 4 years from now, you don't even think about making videos. It's just you've got
Yeah.
Clueso set up and it's just happening on autopilot.
And you're also a Y Combinator funded.
Right.
And we'll come to that, but let's just dial back. You are an alumnus. You came to IIT Madras you studied here from 2018 to 22,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You just graduated. All the memory are very fresh.
Absolutely.
So let's go through your Insta journey. Did you have a nick?
I did. I was called PJ.
PJ.
Yeah.
From Prajwal.
From Prajwal, I think because on my freshie night I did stand up and it was not great.
Okay.
So PJ kind of stuck. Yeah.
Nice. We'll come back to stand up. Which hostel were you in?
Godal.
Okay. I see that my research team has made it a point to tell me that you are very good at your academics. Is it a 9.3?
Yeah.
And you are wrong.
Yeah.
Right, congratulations on that.
Thank
Late, but probably hasn't I don't know.
quite oddity, I think, when people talk to me and they know that I'm a founder. You generally don't think that CAD was ever a part of my life, but yeah, it was. I'm happy.
Fair enough. Let's talk about that a bit. When somebody enters IIT,
Mhm.
obviously, I mean, I've heard directors talk about this. You're entering IIT to leave.
Yeah.
You don't want to stay here forever. And when you enter, you have some idea of the outcomes you want at the end of it. So when you came in 2018, what did you think you will end up
That's
doing?
a great question. Honestly, I didn't have any solid expectations. I think what really attracted me to IT and even going through that whole journey of preparing was that it's supposed to be a place where there's lots of opportunities. So in my mind, I wasn't even thinking about what happens at the end of fourth year. I was more interested in what can I explore in those 4 years? What all different things can I actually take a stab at and try to do? So I was very excited because I think they did a great job with that orientation as well, where they were like, they basically told us there are like 100 different things you can do and just got me really excited. Like you can try out research, you can work with pros, there's this startup thing that you can try with Nirman. We have like these cultural events. There are like inter-ITs for every field of life, cultural, tech, and sport.
And you could also go to class if you want.
Yeah. That's probably lower up the list. But yeah, that's what.
Which of these 100 opportunities, I know you're exaggerating, but which of these opportunities did you explore?
I think the ones that I explored most seriously from the perspective of doing it after I graduate were research and starting up. So research really fascinated me because I've always been of a like technological bent of mind. And even before I came into IT, I was fascinated by this abstract idea of like quantum computing.
Okay.
So being able to actually pursue that, take it from like an abstract concept that you hear about in like the news and sci-fi into actually understanding what goes into it and possibly even contributing to it. That was a really exciting proposition. And startups as well were always.
Can we spend some more time on the research?
Yeah.
If you are an IIT and you're a student and you want to be involved in research, what are the things you need to do?
I think the first step is you use what's available to you, which is the professors and the research labs that we have. So the good thing is you don't even have to step out of your hostel room at this point, where you can just check up online very quickly, figure out what labs we have, and you'll get a clear idea of, okay, we have professors working in, like, for example, in my case, working in, say, quantum computing. Then you can just go show up at their lab. They're always more than happy to talk to students who are genuinely excited and passionate about doing something, and get started very early. So, of course, in your first year, you're probably not going to be in a position where you can, make a massive contribution or get a paper or something. But you can start getting exposure extremely early, and professors are more than happy to help out if you're like genuinely passionate and you want to get some exposure to that field.
And you were with Professor.
Right. So I had like cold approached him on mail that I'm really fascinated by this field. You've been doing like similar work. Can we try to design a project that would work out?
Professor Anil is an EE,
Yeah,
is an electron who works on quantum computing.
Yeah, I was in
CS.
CS. Yeah, it's like CS, EE, and physics. Like it. So quantum computing is a very multidisciplinary field.
Okay.
So
Sorry, I have to ask you, what is quantum computing?
yeah, sure. So quantum computing at its core is us trying to utilize the natural computation that occurs when any physical phenomenon kind of takes place. So the best example I have to like explain it is, let's say you're trying to create a complex structure that involves rings on walls. So if I want to design, let's say it's a classical problem, I want to design a structure that takes the least surface area between 3 points on a wall. If you do this like with classical computation, it's a really hard problem to solve, lots of math optimizations. But in nature, if I just create like a soap bubble and attach it to all these things, it will naturally coalesce to that, because it has to adhere to the principles of surface tension. So that's the base idea. We're trying to utilize the fact that at its core, quantum mechanics is very complex matrix math. So what we want to do is model problems that we have in our real world as quantum systems and let nature kind of solve that problem for us by the natural flow of quantum mechanics, which is underlying matrix manipulations and stuff. Okay. So that concept to me was extremely fascinating. It's basically just try to model things in this framework that we know of quantum mechanics.
Sure. When you say we are trying to model things, we are talking about mathematical framework, algorithmic framework.
Absolutely.
There's also the physical realization of a quantum probability, but you were not involved in that.
Correct. I was always attracted to, and kind of the research we were doing was always around theoretical implementation. The physical implementation, it's like you kind of agree on a contract between the physical implementation and the algorithmic side. Like you agree that what they call it is qubits. So you agree that, let's say we have a n qubit system. It's up to the team working on physical research needs to figure out how do we implement an n physical qubit system, and the theoretical team is just trying to figure out what can we do if we have an n qubit physical system.
Got it. When you were working with Professor Anil, you were also YRF fellow, young research fellow, right? This is a scheme that is available for students. Can you describe the scheme?
Yeah. So I actually started in my batch. It was a very innovative idea. Basically, it was to try and push more students into research. And the problem that they were trying to solve for was it's kind of hard to do research outside of academic hours because of like competing priorities. So what they basically did was converted research into a creditable activity. So instead of taking up a course, you could take up the YRF program. And they did everything they could to motivate you towards research. So beyond giving you credits for a project that you get to do with a professor, they also taught you what are the other aspects of research. Things like how do you start writing a paper? How do you think about publishing? How do you handle like your poster design? How do you even go about that initial phase of research in terms of going through papers and like combining relevant insights across them? So it was almost like a full-fledged research workshop kind of thing that was going on in parallel with your courses.
Fair enough. And you mentioned this earlier, maybe at the first year, second year level, you're not deeply involved, but you're getting the hang of it and so on.
Yeah. So with YRF, you can go a little bit deeper. That YRF was in the third year, where now you're at the point where like, it's your project, you're contributing to it in a very meaningful
Your
manner.
third year would have been the pandemic year.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah. Quite a
talk me through what happened on campus.
Yeah. So when the pandemic hit, it was actually insane because none of us could believe that this is actually happening. Yeah. Because we were in college, it was a normal semester. I think it was around quiz 2. Quiz 2 was just about to happen. And then we just got the news that everybody needs to go back home. Everyone was scampering to figure out how to get back and all of that.
Did campus close earlier than the nation?
Campus closed, I think, like 3 days earlier than the nation. So we had just a little bit of lead time, but everybody found their way home. And then there was that period of uncertainty for like a little bit. But then by April, like this happened like mid-March, by April, we were like, okay, now how do we resume some semblance of normal college life? So that's when remote courses started up. Everybody started installing Teams and
300 to 3 million new people figured out video conferencing.
yeah, exactly. And for us in particular, it was really good because that was when we had more bandwidth to spend on like seriously starting up and building something from scratch.
Right. So this is your second track. You started by saying that when you got to campus on your orientation day, when the institute tells you these are all the things you can do on campus, other than going to class, you realize that there's a research track and a startup track, many other tracks.
Right.
So yeah, walk us through your early startup.
Yeah, for sure.
You didn't even start with Clueso, right?
Yeah, we did not start with anything close to Clueso. So we actually started with Desklamp, which is also a product that's still live. I can walk you through that journey. So basically, the 3 or 4 of us friends, we wanted a way when the pandemic hit to stay in better touch because we were completely out of things to talk about at that point. All of us were at the very least intrigued by startups and wanted to experience that whole loop in like the safe environment that college provides. That was the thought process at that time. So we tried to find a problem that we could actually relate to, also because we were too naive to look for a problem that has a big market or something like that. So the one problem that stood out to us was once we had gone remote, the process of studying and collaborating with our friends was not good. Like what we used to do was go to the library, sit together, someone studies half the course, someone studies half the course, and then you try to explain to each other what's going on.
I never did that, but yeah, happy to know that you did that.
Yeah, I think we were like definitely amongst the nerdier ones.
I'm just thinking that if the four of you or five of you wanted to do something together, in my head, I'm thinking, why could they play a game
Oh
or
yeah,
Call of Duty? I don't
that's
know.
what I think. Everyone finds like that peer group. I think we were weird in that aspect where we kind of felt uncomfortable if we're not doing something productive.
Like we're together in this conference room. Let's build something.
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing, by the way.
Yeah, that's exactly what it used to feel like. Like if we're not doing something, we start feeling uneasy. Like we should be doing something more fun. But yeah, the problem we ended up picking was how do we make that process of collaboration and what can we mimic that experience we used to have in the library
Okay.
online. So that's what Desklamp started with. At its core, the simplest way to describe it is it's a PDF reader come Google Docs in the same product. So essentially, when you're reading, especially scientific textbooks and scientific texts, it can get really annoying to scroll through a PDF. Like when you have a physical book and it references a diagram, you can easily flip through the pages. But when you're reading a PDF and you're seeing something that references a diagram that's on some other page, it's like just a really broken experience. PDFs were not designed to be read as textbooks, they're just printable files.
Yeah.
So our product aimed to solve that. So from your PDF, you can clip out sections, clip out diagrams, add like highlights, and create like a notebook. This notebook you can collaborate on with your friends, and all cross references various PDFs. So if you're reading something in your notes and you're like, wait, I don't exactly remember what's going on here, you can go back to that section in the text from right there. It'll pull it up immediately there and you can check it out. So it was basically super optimized for someone deep diving into a textbook or deep diving into some topic and they want to learn something possibly more on the like science side where you want to clip out diagrams and equations and those kind of things.
Fair enough. And this you started this in the pandemic era, which should have been your third year.
Yeah.
So you had a product, you built a product in your third year, and then what I hear from others is that it just exploded on campus.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. So I think because that was the first time we were building something, we were also a little slow, just figuring out what does it even mean to build software? What are the tools that you need? How do you go about deploying it? How do you actually distribute it to people? So that took a lot of time. But one thing that really helped was our customer base was our friends and our professors. So very early on, even before the product was finished, even though it was just like one little feature, we started getting our friends to try it out. So we gave it to like our friends who weren't working on it and they gave us feedback. Then we started reaching out to professors saying like, by building this thing, do you want to try it out? Maybe it could help you when you're like planning courses or doing some sort of research work. And professors were insanely supportive. We didn't expect that. But like I remember Professor Rupesh, for example, sent us back like an email with a full essay around these are the exact things that I don't like about the software. These are the exact things that I like.
Okay.
So
Talking about Professor Rupesh Nastey
from the CS department.
CSI.
Yeah. I was doing a course with him at the time, so yeah, it was just natural. So lots of professors who tried out the product, lots of students who tried out the product, but it was still in like kind of that trial phase. I think for us, it started exploding at the start of 2021 because we had this early feedback from people who actually used it. We kind of got better direction for the product. So we always internally were thinking the part that's going to click is clipping out diagrams, but the part that was actually clicking with people was the notes. So that was something that we couldn't have discovered until we actually had a lot of people using it and coming back to have it feedback. So we kept iterating on it, and then like by April 2021, things had really started picking up within IITM, like to the point where if we just asked one of our friends like, hey, like have you tried this? And they tell us we already have, which was really exciting. Then we decided to start spreading it to other colleges and just see if the response is equally.
Now you're going out of your safe zone. How was
Yeah. I think it was not so difficult. Like I would think that it would have been more difficult, but again, I think I don't know if it's a cross IT support system or people were just impressed by our story. So what we did to spread it in other colleges was we just asked academic secretaries to send out a mail. So I think that's another place where being remote helped because everyone was remote, they had to check their mail like very regularly. So it came in like KGP, Kanpur, Bombay, Delhi. So we started getting a lot of signups there. And that's around the time we started having the conversation around, yes, do we want to do this full time? Because by 2021, I had reached the point where I was going to be the first to graduate. So my two co-founders, Akash and Neil, they were going to graduate in 2023, but I was graduating in 2022. So then we had to have that discussion.
sure, because the minute you enter your fourth year, you have to
Yeah, exactly.
show those outcomes.
Right. You will start planning ahead, because especially if the other option was research, you have to think aggressively about apping, about
And it
getting those
takes about
collaborations in.
6 months at least
Right. Exactly.
to prepare for a good job or to prepare for
Yeah.
admit.
I think by that point, job was out of the question for me at least. Okay. I had a good experience at Adobe. So I had one internship. So I've only worked at one other company.
The one other company you work with is Adobe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which was a great experience from a lot of perspectives. Like they do really good work there and I had a good time. But
But when was this internship at Adobe,
it was in the summer of 2021.
which was a remote internship?
Yeah, it was a remote internship.
And did they offer you a
They
based offer?
Yeah.
Okay. So going into your fourth year, you had this product which was, say, can you give us an idea, 2020, 2021, somewhere when you entered
Yeah.
fourth year, how many users did you have?
I think then it was not that big. It was probably somewhere in the early thousands. So probably somewhere around 3,000, 4,000, somewhere around that range. Because I think part of it was also we had still not committed full time to it. We were
Yeah.
spending all of our bandwidth on it, but that was more from a product building perspective.
But
We had
3,000, 4,000 people using your product within 6 months of, maybe.
Yeah, it is.
It's great, but also like it's sufficient enough for you to ask that question.
Mhm.
Should I
Exactly.
dive deeper or not?
Right, right.
Because if it was just 500, you would just
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring this up because we always had this struggle, especially when building consumer software, around what numbers are good. So I think until we did YC, we also had a very skewed perspective of what numbers are good. So because of that whole experience, now when we look back, we know like the numbers have to be much, much higher in consumer software for you to warrant it turning out to be a good business.
sure. But we'll come to YC later. In your both year, you are trying to figure out whether to double down on this data that you sort of stumbled upon.
Yeah.
Uh,
So we had like spent a lot of our bandwidth on the product building side, but we hadn't really pushed it as a company, as a business in terms of actively trying to increase distribution. Like we had just basically sent out mails to other colleges, which is very low effort task. Then we had to have that conversation around, do we want to do this full time? What will that look like? So I think for me, the deciding factor was my co-founders. So Akash and Neil are both incredibly motivated and we all have very complementary skill sets. So I gravitate a lot towards thinking of it from like an engineering point of view, and building product is something that really excites me. Neil is extremely, extremely customer centric, which is DNA we have like all absorbed now, even at Clueso, where it's like he would obsess over anyone who has a bad experience on Desklamp. He was obsessing over, okay, they tried it and they didn't end up using it the next time. Why? Those kind of things really resonate with him. Akash is, an all-rounder, super passionate about designing really good products, which is often something that gets ignored, especially from a group that's technically.
so you have an engineering mindset, you have a customer focused mindset, and a design mindset.
Exactly.
Product design mindset.
Exactly, which I think is like the perfect combination for a SaaS company. So that was like a big deciding factor that I don't know when I'll get that opportunity of meeting equally passionate, equally motivated people who add so much more to the table besides like what I can bring. That everything kind of clicked. So we decided, let's give it a shot. I think part of it was also like in the heat of the moment, like because we could feel that growth. We were like, let's just do this. Let's just go.
Also, the pandemic was driving everyone to like sort of take decisions that they wouldn't have normally taken.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was definitely part of it. I think also we could see that our batchmates were simply not having as much fun as we were at that point. Very
Interesting.
everyone was, the pressure of placements, pressure of apping.
Yeah.
And technically speaking, we were working longer hours, we were doing more work, but it didn't feel like it because we were basically building things that excited us with our friends. So
You were in a state of flow.
yeah, we were in like hardcore flow state. So by the end of the Adobe internship, I had decided, okay, we're going to do this full time. So now I'm going to have to gear up and change whatever we're doing and go much more all in on the product
The
building.
three of you were 9 pointers. If you are sitting out of placements, if you're not going to apply to universities abroad, and you're going to run your little startup, which is a PDF plus plus.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's a fair assessment.
You have to have this conversation with yourself internally that I'm doing this
Right.
and I'm giving up. Oh yeah, that was on the table. You have to have this conversation with your parents, maybe your friends. How did those conversations go?
Yeah. I think the internal conversation was honestly the hardest because once you have conviction, generally, I'm very fortunate that I come from a very supportive family. So they were like, if you like really believe in it, go for it. But that internal struggle is always there, especially in my case, because I could see my friends on different very successful paths, which would also could have been open to me because of the GPA and the other interests I had, like quantum computing. it was a little tricky, but this whole idea that this life, right, the life of a founder or an entrepreneur allows you to put in 100% like very few other careers can. Like I really love building product and love engineering, which is like what I like to do 90% of my day. But there's no other role that allows you to live and breathe your work like being a founder does. Like I get to talk about my company. I have to think about things like the user, think about things like how will we get our next employees. So I get to use a lot more skills beyond the engineering side of me. That was really, really nice. Like, another thing about my Insta journey was I really enjoyed doing like cultural events, and I was part of Oratory Club and the Comedy Club. What club is that? Oratory. Oratory. Yeah, like debate club and speaking and those kind of things. So yeah, I always felt like being just an engineer would kind of be limiting. So this was also a big deciding factor that you can express yourself in every way that you like. Like we're also all a little creative in our own way, so that like reflects in the name and the logo and all of that. So,
But we haven't come to Clueso yet. It is still on Desklamp.
yeah, right. Even Desklamp has a quite an interesting story. So Desklamp was originally called Kitab because we were so naive, we didn't know that copyrights and trademarks are a thing. So we just called it Kitab, and then along the way realized, oh, you can't just call things
Anything you want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is a legal process.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So once you decided, at some point you guys applied to IC and you got accepted, which is a big deal. Congratulations on that. I mean,
thank you.
a little late, but and a lot of founders across the world, including of course India, think of that as a very, very, very difficult step, and also it's a sort of a sign of approval. Open some doors for you. You learn a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So walk us through the YC application process,
Mhm.
and then the interview process and what you learned.
Right. So deciding to apply was also a very last minute decision for us because this was in 2022. So at this point, I had graduated. Both my co-founders, Akash and Neil, were still in college. So we were still working out of IITM, working out of the Nirman office essentially. And we weren't very crystal clear on what we wanted to do if we raised money. Like we weren't clear on, okay, if tomorrow we have some money in the bank, what will we change? So it was not a very clear decision around applying to IC. But then what pushed us was, hey, it's a very simple process, which is what YC also really advocates for. It should be a simple process. There's just this form which asks you very basic questions about your company. Well, they ask you, what are you building? How long have you been building it for? What kind of traction do you have? Why are you building this? What do you see in the market that competitors don't? So these are all very simple questions, but the process of filling out the form is, I would recommend companies to do it even if they're not applying to YC, because it gives you so much internal clarity.
Yeah.
Like it's a great form.
It's a good reflection of
Exactly. Yeah. And it forces you to ask yourself hard questions like what am I seeing in the market that competitors haven't?
yeah.
What is it about my customer base that will actually allow this to scale as a big.
Yeah, and what happens sometimes is founders, especially early in their journey, end up they don't realize it. I would have done the same thing. I have many times done the same thing. They don't realize it, but they sort of take a path which is not really very lucrative or not really right. Then they build narratives around it, start believing in their own bullshit,
Yeah.
and then go down a path which has
Yeah.
no return.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to some extent we were possibly in that loop at that point because there were so many good things going for us. By 2022, we had reached around 30,000 odd users. Uh, we had spread to law colleges, law universities. There were lots of things going well for us. It felt like a prototype could scale. People really loved it.
And I think from our perspective as a student, 30,000 is a large number.
Yeah, exactly. It's very humbling to feel like, okay, there are 30,000 people who are using what I've built over the last year or so. So yeah, we applied to YC. We didn't honestly have very high expectations. That being said, we did fill the form with like, putting in 100% of attention to it. So it took us like 2 days odd to actually answer those questions to the best of our ability. That's basically it. There's just this one form, and then you get to know if you're going to have an interview or not. So we got to know that we have an interview in like just under a month. And because they're based out of the US, we had to take the interview in the night. So we actually had to request Nandini ma'am at Nirman, can we just have that office open? Because we didn't want to take it in a hostel room because that looks so bad.
Also, you'd have to clean your hostel room.
Also, we'd have to clean our hostel room, which was not,
Acceptable.
time well. Yeah. So we asked ma'am to keep like Nirman open. So our call was, I think, at like 2:30 a.m. or something like that. So we just stayed in Nirman that whole night. It was like so much tension that we're going to actually talk to them. The interview itself, they're very opinionated about how they do their interviews. It's 10 minutes, rapid fire, no nonsense. Like they don't even bother asking you your name. Like they've come in having done a bit of their research and read your form. So they just dive right into the depths around like what you're building, what their major concerns are, and understand your mentality. So in our case, I'd say the interview went fairly well. The one question at the end where we were a little divided was at the end they asked us, okay, like, sure, you guys have some clarity on what you're building, but there's a history of a graveyard of products in the productivity space, right? Like people don't tend to succeed. There's not been one big success story that's lasted for decades and built like a long lasting business. So what will you guys do if it doesn't work? So that was like a bit of a curveball. We thought about it for a second and then we just went, we'll build something else. Like if it doesn't work out, the three of us, we'll figure it out. We'll build something else if required. So at the end of that call, then we were reflecting, we were like, we should have showed them that we had more conviction that like, this idea is 100% going to work. What sort of answer was that? But then in like a day later, they told us, yeah, you're in. We're going to fundraise. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what they wanted to hear. And that's now, sure, in hindsight, I think very great answer for an entrepreneur. Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of conversation around this, that entrepreneurs have to be very gritty. That is, they have to be very focused on their effort and they have to push through. But also, sometimes you need to be self-aware that you like a U-turn now and go somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So the point where you want to say, if this doesn't work, I have the humility to say this. Exactly, I'm moving on.
Right.
That's also,
yeah. And I think YC bets very big on those kind of founders. So essentially, once they accepted us, they told us like, here's why we're taking you in. What they like to see is a team that can build a great product and actually get people to use it. Those are like at their core the two elements that help make any kind of company, but especially a software company.
the YC acceptance would have given you a lot of confidence, right? Because you will now, yeah, something to tell everyone saying that, it was not just a project.
I think it was a bit of both. Like we were very excited that YC accepted us, but we were also just beginning to comprehend the idea that we may have to pivot and change what we're doing, which was very daunting for us because in my mind at that time, a lot of the conviction I had around starting up was also partially like the idea we were working on and that product had already built up a user base that was really loving it. So I think that was the biggest learning right off the bat that we had from YC, which is just accepting that you as entrepreneurs are not exactly what you're building at that moment. Your identity is, say, an entrepreneur, or you do want to build something of value, but it's not that particular idea. Like disconnecting the two was a big learning that like YC really.
There's so much to think about it because entrepreneurs solve problems. Their businesses pick some problem, but we get to see them after they have picked it.
Right,
Exactly. You talk to entrepreneurs in the very beginning and say, why are you doing this? Yeah. There's like a whole range of answers from simply, I was here. I mean, there's no reason, but I'm here. Now I'll find my conviction around this.
Yeah.
I had this problem myself, which is what you're saying. I wanted to study better. So form Desklamp or whatever.
Right.
Two, I made a Excel sheet of 25 problems.
I did market research and began the best. Was the best thing. Yeah.
Or for older entrepreneurs, it's sometimes I've been in this business for a really long time. I know this problem already exists for a lot of users, so I'm solving it.
Yeah.
And so there's a moment where you're describing that your problem that you have picked may not be something that you can live for, right?
Yeah.
But now you have to pick another problem.
Yeah.
So then how do you...
I think we first had to genuinely build conviction internally that we want to pivot, because otherwise there's always going to be this voice that says you have 50,000 users, go back to it. So knowing YC had us build a framework around let's try to validate or invalidate this idea as fast as we can. So what they told us to do was, you guys know the company and you know what metrics will make you happy. Define that set of metrics and just race towards, if we time box it in a month, can we hit some metrics that make us happy? So in our case, the main challenge that we were feeling was the customer base we were targeting was not easily monetizable, because primarily it was designed for college students and academics who don't have very deep pockets. So what we wanted to validate was, is the situation different in the US? Like, can we hope to charge college students in the US because their fees are naturally much higher? Can we try to achieve that scale? So the experiment we designed for ourselves was...
But it's not just about, I mean, in India, I think college students are also not used to paying for stuff.
Absolutely.
I think they have the money,
Yeah, there are so many things vying for your money as a college student. Like I could buy software or I could go out for a movie with my friends. Yeah. Like competing with that is what's hard. It's not really competition in like your niche of software. You need to add so much value that you beat the other things they could do with their money. That's the whole challenge I felt with like building for consumers as a segment. Yeah. Versus it gets way different with the business, but we can talk about that when we come back to Clueso.
Did you figure out whether American students had any different?
Yeah, so we tried a very nice experiment. We said, okay, we're going to talk to 25 students across 25 colleges. If 4 of them agree to pay $5 per month, that's like a great outcome for us because it would be a much more high touch sale than them discovering the product on their own. So we did that experiment, didn't pan out. They were all not like they really liked the product. All of them said, I would love to use it. Moment we asked them to pay, they're like, oh, I have to think about it. That's when we realized this is going to be an uphill battle. We're going to spend all of our energy on it. And part of the environment around YC helped us realize if you're going to be spending like almost 100% of your life on something, you should try to aim big because that ambition was something they really stress on and they help instill in all the entrepreneurs they find. And we were ambitious, but we didn't realize like there is a grade of ambitious that you can be. So then we accepted that we had to pivot and then we entered a phase of what we call pivot hell, which is basically, you want to do something, you're there to do something, and you have no idea what. So we were just shuffling between ideas. So we were first trying to pursue like a code documentation angle because that felt like something kind of related to Desklamp, where it was around like collaborative documentation and making that workflow better. So that's another place where being in YC helped a bit, where we immediately had access to a good network of engineers because of our batchmates who were mostly like engineers from Google, Meta, who had left their jobs trying to start up. So we could start talking to them, get a better gauge of what are the problems they faced at their.
So you're talking about your YC cohort.
Yeah. This is at the YC cohort. So again,
Is it common in the YC cohort for founders to want to pivot?
extremely common.
Is it?
That is part of what makes it easier because most of I would say like probably 50 to 60% come in there and end up pivoting.
Okay.
Because that's just the nature of, I think, both the ecosystem in SF and the kind of companies YC funds.
Yeah.
Because they're betting mostly on early stage founders. And it's kind of rare to have an idea immediately off the bat that works. Like generally all companies tend to have some journey of pivoting or figuring out exactly what they're building. So that environment really helped. Everybody's trying to figure out what to do. So once we were there and we were trying to talk to other engineers, settle on this problem, again, the advice that actually helped us was pick something you guys actually resonate with. So it's like this thing they call founder market fit, which is unless you deeply understand the problem or at least have some wedge to resonate with it, it gets really hard to build fast, iterate fast, and get a good idea of where your product is headed. So then that's how we stumbled on the problem of Clueso. So this was a problem we had at Desklamp, which was we had built this great PDF++ product, and some people were getting a lot of value out of it. But there were others who had no idea what to do on the product, right? They would come, they would be confused, they wouldn't know what to do. So what some of them would end up doing is dropping us mails. So we'd get a lot of emails around, hey, how do I export my PDF? How do I do this? How do I do that on the products? And we didn't have the bandwidth as a tiny team with 3 people trying to do so much to actually sit and maintain this kind of documentation or like knowledge base. Especially because we were iterating so fast on the product that even if we wrote one answer, in 3 days it would be out of date. So we felt like this whole thing was a problem, like the support side of things. Another big problem was actually creating good launch videos. So we made one launch video. It took us a week and a half. We actually got someone from the music club in Insti to do the voiceover because at that point there were no AI voices or anything. So we had to go and persuade her, please come spend a day with us and just record this whole video. And that whole process was very time consuming, but it had really good returns. That video, we got like I think 25,000 views, lots of direct signups coming from just that video on YouTube. So these two problems felt very related because what we're talking about in the video is basically how to use Desklamp. So we had to first sit and make articles and spend so much time making a video. Something about that started to feel broken and we knew we weren't able to do it well.
In the SaaS world, this is called a product video.
Yeah. In a SaaS world, this is called a product video. Exactly. So something about product videos, support documentation, help articles, something here started to click in our heads. So then we went about trying to validate, is this a problem other companies face, or is it just like a 3% team building while in college that has to go through it? And the good news was we were getting very strong reactions from people when we would bring up this problem. So we tried to talk to customer success teams, customer support teams, product marketing teams at various companies through the YC network, through the IITM network as well. And all of them were resonating with the problem to some extent. That's when we built conviction. Let's try to solve this problem in some way. And that's when the Clueso version 1 came out. So in fact, when we first released Clueso, again, team of 3 engineers. So the name we came up with was Giga User. And the
Giga user.
Yeah, the idea behind that was whatever we were building would be the best user of your app because it knows everything. Like, because you've used it to make all these support articles and videos, it's like the best user of your app. It's what your ideal user would be.
I mean, don't feel too bad about it. ChatGPT is called Chat.
No.
We are in the world.
Exactly. But the feedback we got was it's a very intimidating name because we sell to product marketing teams and customer success teams. They're like, our first reaction was this is like a dev tool because like you have like pseudo users and super users are in like development. So then we wanted to pivot entirely, like the name part, we wanted to change to something way more friendly, something that has like a fun, quirky vibe. So that's kind of how we came to Clueso.
Okay. And the yellow, you're very interesting logo.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through?
Yeah. So the idea is it's essentially a detective kind of theme that we wanted to go for.
Okay.
Because the idea is your users, instead of having to hire a private detective to figure out what's going on in your product, they just come to Clueso. So we went for this whole vibe of a detective, and Clueso is the detective in the Pink Panther movies. If you've ever seen. Oh yeah, and it also has clue in its name because we like give clues about your product essentially. So like a lot of little things click. We liked that it was pink, and we got to stand out from like the general blues and oranges that you see in SaaS.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of fit. Akash designed the logo. It's like the little mustache, like a detective mustache, the monocle.
I can't even tell if is he looking onto the logo, right?
Yeah, he has 2 eyes. One of them is the magnifying glass. Yeah. So now we've just made an animation where he winks. I really like that animation. Yeah.
Damn cool. I want to say that even with really good software, like software we all use all the time, most users end up using a few features, maybe like 10% of the features. And it's always an issue with the engineering team that I built so much,
But it's not getting adopted.
it's not getting adopted.
Absolutely.
Feature adoption is
It's a high value problem statement.
and I guess at the very least for larger teams, Clueso provides an easy way to build content for feature adoption.
Exactly. So
So it's customer education,
right.
product marketing, and feature adoption.
Exactly. So the best thing about the whole journey of building Clueso has been that we can own our own product as well because we use Clueso to prove all these points that Clueso can help you solve. Like whenever we launch a feature, we, as part of like our engineering checklist, we have to make a video using Clueso on that feature and launch it to customers. So that way, I think one of the biggest challenges that customers have in launching features is they don't know how to position that launch. How do you maintain that constant line of contact with your customer and explain what new features are coming out? So what we do is, for example, we have a Slack channel with every single one of our customers. We go and broadcast a message where every time we launch a new feature, like here's a new feature launch, here's how the video is. And all of them look at it. Like around 80% of them actually react to it. They know that, oh shit, there's a new feature that's out.
I'm smiling because I've used your product
Yeah.
for a client of mine, and I have got these messages from
From
the Slack channel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you pivoted while in YC,
Mm-hmm.
and then you built your MVP. It started growing. Uh, did you raise funds?
Yeah. So one of the other advantages of YC is it opens a lot of doors in terms of fundraising. So we kind of took advantage of that and decided, let's go ahead and raise some funds, even though honestly speaking, 500K is a huge amount of money, especially if you're building out of India.
This is the
YC
fund.
check, YC, right? Yeah. But we did end up raising after that. We found like a great partner in F7 Ventures. So they're a group of ex Facebook employees who started a fund. So they resonated with this problem very strongly because even at Facebook, they had entire teams of people devoted to making guides, making support content for how to use features of Facebook. And they helped us discover another high value problem statement, which is multilingual translation of these things. So especially the biggest SaaS companies, One of their challenges is that the product team maybe sits out of the US, can make this content in English, sure, but then they sell to Europe, they sell to South America, so they need that content in Spanish, German, French.
In fact, when you are a SaaS company, it's across any SaaS company is a cross-border product, like your product.
Exactly.
I remember I was working in Chartby for a while, and it's like the first 100 customers are from 20 different countries.
Yeah. Same story.
You don't realize how quickly it can,
Exactly.
because you have to worry about taxation, you have to worry about which currency you're getting paid in,
Right, right.
plus language, because not everybody speaks English.
Yeah. There are a lot of challenges with running like a global SaaS company. The good thing is there are slowly products solving for every piece of that, like that are coming out. Like I think we are solving now for the content piece. There are other products we use that solve for like the payments piece, where it just become easier to take in. But you're right, like that's a big property of SaaS companies, which is most of them are for a global audience. And that's actually been a lot of good inroads for us in some of these emerging markets. Things like Southeast Asia has been really big for us because their teams don't feel that comfortable making like high quality content in English, but they do sell to the US. So a lot of SaaS companies there use us. A lot of SaaS companies in India use us. That's something we're very proud of because the general narrative is that SaaS doesn't have an audience in India. You can't really get meaningful revenue from India. But we got it from like day one because I think same problem for Indian companies. They want to position themselves to audiences across the globe, but they don't have that skill set here in like making that really high quality content, making it feel like it resonates with that geography. So
And you're saying this, I think it's obvious to me, and maybe it's obvious to some of our audiences, but this is a very core AI product. Like there's a lot of AI that gets used.
absolutely.
So did your pivot happen before the ChatGPT movement, or
Yeah, it's a very good question. So when we pivoted, honestly, we had zero exposure to AI. There was some buzz around it in SF, like that, hey, this whole AI thing is going to change the world. But it hadn't hit like a truck the way it's hit now. So when we started, we were not building it as like an AI first product or something. It was never in our heads that, hey, let's build an AI company. We wanted to solve that problem for software companies that we resonated with. Somewhere in July 2023, which is after the YC cohort had happened, we had come back, we had pivoted to Clueso, raised funds, had just started building the MVP with a few pilot customers. In July 2023 is when we were talking to a customer, we started to realize part of their problem was around even storyboarding that piece of content or video in the first place. Like we were helping them with the workflow of grabbing screenshots and adding effects in the videos. But even just coming up with a script that makes sense was taking them a lot of time. That felt like the first problem AI could kind of solve for us. So it started with that one tiny feature. And then when we opened that and immediately could see the value add to our customers, we realized, oh, let's try to think more AI first moving forward. Like let's see what are other technologies that can supercharge this workflow that customers won't tell us directly. They'll tell us their problem. It's up to us to figure out, oh, is this actually something solvable with this new tool at our disposal? So since then, we've actually become like insanely heavy users of AI. Like I think pretty much any AI technology is in Clueso at some point. There is speech to text, of course, text to text with LLMs, text to speech is one of our flagship features. We have like pieces of vision as well in our product. So now our DNA has changed completely, and we like are always on the lookout for how can these workflows change astronomically with AI coming in.
actually translation is also an AI product. Like today, because it's 10 years old, it doesn't.
Yeah. No, so interestingly about translation, right? The way LLMs do translation is so much better than APIs of like older days, like older technologies. Same thing with text to speech as well. Like under the hood, the text to speech models also rely on LLMs. Like LLMs are actually an insane breakthrough for everyone.
Sure. So, this is an incredible journey. You've joined IIT. You have multiple things to pursue in Canvas. You choose to do research, then move to building a product. Let me say the pandemic happens, and you could figure out how to take advantage of that and like build a product. Product scaled a bit. Then you got into YC. Immediately realized that the product's not going to scale a lot more, and then you pivoted to Clueso. And in the last 1 year, you built this. Are you growing it like? I think you're growing it like some 2-3 times a year, right?
We're growing at 13x a year.
13x a year.
2024 was amazing for us. So that's been a really incredible journey. Similar to Desklamp in some ways because we've had that explosion of growth. I'm really grateful for the fact that we've got to experience both selling directly to consumers and businesses so that now I can appreciate the nuances and differences. in between.
I'm reflecting on what you're saying now, and like in INSEE, there are a lot of labs, and there's an academic setting. There's a lot of research going on. So what happens is that the startups and the businesses that come out from here are maybe lab grown. So they think of a here's something we are working on. This is our research, and after the research sort of reaches a point, they start worrying about who's going to use it, which is fine because that's how that kind of entrepreneurship works. In your case, you have literally started the other way. Like, what is the problem we can solve, and then gone
Right.
build the product around it.
Yeah.
That's quite cool.
Yeah. I think, especially if you are looking to build a SaaS company, I think this approach is the better route to take, because the blocker, in a lot of ways, is the tech, like that comes at some point. But the real blocker is, who are you building it for? What high value problem statement can you solve with your software or AI or whatever you're building? Because it's not that tricky to get something up and running. Of course, it does get trickier as you're scaling and as you're trying to, add more features to your product. But that initial iteration is actually incredibly fast. Like, the fact that some kids straight out of college can build something that businesses pay thousands of dollars for is like a unique thing about software. And that's what makes me so passionate about it. So even this is one line from YC that I really loved, like what our partner told us, which is, being able to write software and build products is honestly like being a wizard in a muggle's world, because you can actually solve a problem really fast while sitting in your pajamas at home and just get something out there that actually has value. So I think this approach of really nail your customer, always be customer obsessed, and then build tech around it that naturally solves their workflow rather than just go after building tech is something I really learned in this whole journey of building products.
Nice. I'm cool. What does the next, say, 5 years look like?
Yeah. I was kind of touching on this earlier as well. So right now, Clueso has already transformed their workflow, I'd say something like 5 to 10x, where it's become much faster, the quality has improved, all of that has happened. But I think the real win for us is when we eliminate this function entirely. Like, you as the company, as someone building your product, don't even have to explicitly think about, okay, I've built the feature, now I have to figure out how to market it and make content for it and figure out how to distribute it. I think we envision a way that Clueso can do all of this for you on autopilot. So it's like you integrate Clueso with your product and you're done. Every time we deploy a new feature, Clueso has automatically made a video for you, automatically made the launch for you. You just have to like approve it and it goes out to all your customers. I think that's the vision for us, to like completely transform the way we think about videos now. Like, for us, a win is if like 5, 6 years later, people look back and think, oh, people used to like record videos manually. Like, that is insane. Will you have an AI do it for you?
Yeah. And call a voiceover artist for.
Yeah, and like actually call some singer in your college to come and record audio for you. Yeah, I think that's the vision that really excites us. The degree of automation we've already been able to achieve so early in the journey is super exciting, and I think we're just going to take that to 100.
Awesome. This sounds great. I want to reflect on a few things that you've touched upon here and there. I think you found your team in Insti, and you started doing a project with them. I feel like that could have gone either way because a lot of founders start with their friends in college, and it doesn't work. It's not a break
Right.
spot.
Yeah.
So what was special about?
There was definitely some serendipity there, because I'm still in touch with juniors, especially those who are trying to start up. And you're right, this is one of the hardest things.
Yeah.
Like, but it's a hard thing in life in general, like finding a good co-founder, finding a good
Sure.
partner.
I've read somewhere that 90% of
Is break up because of the co-founder.
fights.
Yeah, 100%. So definitely think like grateful, and we got lucky in finding it. But I think the highest odds of finding someone are in an environment like Insta, like IITM. So even when we talk to juniors, we like push them that, they'll be like, okay, no, I'll just do it alone. I had such a bad experience. My friend and I stopped talking. We don't even sit next to each other in the mess now. But we still try to push them, because the odds of finding someone whose wavelengths like you match with are really high in Insta. Like, we've had a couple of other now juniors and some of our seniors who found their co-founders in IITM. I think it starts early. It starts with being very clear that, at least in our case, we were hardcore friends first and co-founders second. That really helped. Like, we just genuinely enjoy being around each other as people as well. Like, we live together, we have to see each other's face all the time. So I think the best way to put it is, this should be someone you would have wanted to be your roommate anyway. Like, regardless of being a co-founder, you just enjoy being with them so much that you're like, yeah, let's just, even if we were going to move to Bangalore and do a job together, we'd probably get a flat together or something.
Can I ask you, the three of you and maybe all your early employees also have signed up for a life which involves a lot of work? Absolutely. It's I won't be 90 hours, but it's actually much more probably.
It is. It honestly is. But I think that's what we've been striving to achieve, even with the office and the new set of employees, is to recreate and maintain that spirit of it doesn't feel like work if you genuinely enjoy what you're doing, and more importantly, the people you're doing it with. And luckily, we've been able to find people like that who resonate with the company, have that same feeling that we do, that we're honestly lucky to be on this rocket ship. Like, so many things aligned. We had like a great founding team with all complementary skills. We're at this perfect juncture of time where like the product we're building today wouldn't have been possible even 2 years ago. So like a lot of stars are kind of aligned, and everyone in the team is aware of that. That this is like almost, I wouldn't put it this way, but yeah, to some extent, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity where we're at this juncture where technology is causing a massive disruption. We have all the ingredients for a great team. Great product is already there. We have customers. Yeah. So now it's just put your foot on the gas and like really accelerate.
It's more than that. No, like you feel like I remember this line from Hamilton where Hamilton sings, "I'm not going to give away my shot," because it's like you have the shot.
Exactly.
Whatever stars have aligned or whatever, you're here,
Right.
and then you can't be overwhelmed by it. You have to do it
Yeah.
because it's there to take.
Exactly. So interestingly, one thing that we have to get better at is it gets harder and harder to celebrate the wins as the wins keep coming, because you're like, there is so much more for us to do. Like, sure, whether it's a revenue milestone, number of customers, or just some marquee customer we closed. So one tiny thing we've done to change that is we now have this bell in the office. So whenever there's a win, like a feature shipped, a big customer closed, something like that, someone goes and rings the bell.
The win bell.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we're doing so much that you'll have to.
We'll have to stop it. Yeah, that's the aim.
What do you guys do to relax? I mean, now, by the way, now your office is in HSR,
Yeah.
right? Which is like the place where a lot of startups are there, and it's like a lot of them are very well funded, and it's a space where there's a lot of energy.
Yeah, for sure. It is a space with a lot of energy, and what we've tried to do is bring a little bit of like peace and calm into the office. So we model it as like this really foresty green vibe, probably because we spend so much time in Insta, like we're used to building in an environment where there's like trees around you and greenery in general, lots of warm lighting. So yeah, we're very happy with the way the new office has come out. I think everyone who's come by, even as a visitor, has been like, wow, like this looks really good. Super proud of that. HSR in general is also a good ecosystem. Lots of founders we really look up to and can go to for advice, to talk to. Several of them Insta founders as well.
Yeah, Hyperverge is in.
Hyperverge is also an HSR, yeah. Galaxy was an HSR, they just moved out. But yeah, lots of great people to talk to, very supportive ecosystem in general. So it's been exciting.
Nice, damn cool. I feel like you have skirted the question of what do you do to relax.
I actually forgot that that's what you asked. Oh my goodness, I have issues. Uh, I think we're still settling into that because we work 6 days a week. We work like really hard. We work from like 10:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. 6 days a week, all of us. So more often than not, just catching up on like being an adult takes up Sunday, like groceries and laundry and those kind of things. I happen to stay in the same city as my family, so I go visit my parents and brother as well. A little bit of a social life, whatever we can try to have on Sundays. But one thing that really helped me relax a bit, this is the most stereotypical HSR founder thing, is I started playing pickleball.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pickleball is super fun, slowly getting the rest of the office also into it. So in the mornings before we go to work, we go play a game of pickleball. They're extremely easy to pick up. It's a perfect sport for people who don't do sports. So that's been a nice thing.
I read somewhere that you are a comic book fan.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us more?
Yeah, I'm basically a very stereotypical nerd. So even in like high school, I used to love comic books. I was super into the whole MCU movie scene with like all these superheroes. So one thing that I like, part of the joy of being a founder is you can inject small bits of personality into what you do. So because we have this whole detective quirky vibe going on, the way we've modeled our entire blog site is like this old school 60s comic book, like the ones that I used to read in high school, just so that it stands out a bit more different from like the general corporate vibe that software tends to have.
Can I ask you a bit on that? Um, a SaaS company from India, when the world looks at a SaaS company from India, they maybe SaaS companies, in general, any founder, not just SaaS, wants to play it a little safe that, you don't want to stand out so much that the customer rejects you, especially when you're talking to a larger enterprise kind of client. If you show too much of personality, they may feel like this is not for us.
That's a good point you raise. So I think what we've realized is it's all about how you position it to specific customers. I think it is possible to coexist as a company or a brand that likes to have fun and a company or a brand building like a phenomenal product, right? And one of the tools we take a lot of inspiration from is something like Canva. Canva has like a really fun, quirky brand, but every company from like Fortune 500 to the smallest of startups to the Insti students as well use Canva for their design.
Yeah, and also very young founders,
Yeah,
younger than you when they started.
exactly. Very similar story. They also started from like an ecosystem like in Australia where it wasn't so mature in terms of lots of SaaS successes to look for,
And I think she wanted to build a photo book.
they were building something for like school students again. So that also is like DNA we share because we also started with college kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, our goal is, I think you're right that SaaS founders also tend to play it safe. The history of SaaS in India has, I wouldn't say copycat products, but there's not an association of novelty or new products coming out of India.
I no, I mean maybe you're right.
Yeah.
There's Postman and browser.
Yeah, you're right. I think obviously exceptions to the rule.
Yeah,
And
but I feel like when you're selling to a more mature market like US, you tend to be very self-critical and you tend to take safe decisions.
exactly, exactly. I think being as naive as we are and being literally not knowing better has sometimes been a good thing for us because we sometimes just make the decisions and run with it. Sometimes we may have to backtrack, but
Yeah.
it's good because I think the best learning happens when you make some mistakes along the way. And so far, it's been working out really well for us. I think people really appreciate that there is something that kind of stands out about us, whether it's the terms, the way we brand, the way we present ourselves on social media. All of those things have worked in our favor so far.
The last part, I want to talk to you about the ecosystem at IIT Madras. You have been able to sort of benefit from it quite, and now you're saying, we want to make sure that everybody understands that IIT Madras is a great place to build, best place to build. Sorry,
100% best
Right.
place to build.
Can you tell us in specific some of the things that maybe wouldn't have happened if you were not here?
Very good question. I think one thing for sure is making it clear to us that entrepreneurship is a safe bet very early on, right? Because the general narrative is that like startups are risky. To an extent they are, that is true. But I think from day one, the messaging Insti gave us through institutions like Nirman was always you can give it a shot. It's not make or break. Like it's not like your life ends if you decide to spend a few years trying to build something of your own. That narrative building was super helpful and like all of the benefits Nirman has to offer, right? I think the biggest benefit, of course, is the peer group. Like I found my co-founders and other super motivated founders building things of their own. That peer group is extremely important, especially early on in like keeping yourself motivated in navigating challenges together. That peer group is something we found at Nirman. Besides that, professors, like I was saying, Professor Rupesh, other professors in my department, everybody is supportive in their own way, whether it's helping you figure out how do you lessen your load on academics, for example, because you're trying to pursue this thing full time. So they'd help us in terms of getting like credits as like uh, projects, basically, where we could just present Desklamp as a project. I did my entire BTech project, in fact, as Desklamp and just showed them exactly what we'd built, and they really appreciated it. So in lots of little ways, IITM adds up, whether it's like official processes or even unofficial things like that students run on their own. Everything comes together to create this ecosystem where you can just focus on what's important, basically. Like there's no distraction, there's no excuse you need to make that, hey, this thing is not working out or there's something else I have to do. You can just apply 100% of yourself in building the company or like whatever you want to build.
Sure. Um, can you tell us a little bit in detail? I mean, we didn't touch upon it earlier, but now you spoke about Nirman. So, what is Nirman? And
Oh, for sure.
uh,
Yeah.
what is it this you're talking about?
Yeah. So Nirman is IITM's pre-incubation cell.
What is a pre-incubation?
Pre-incubation cell is basically to allow students to take ideas or projects and try to turn them into a company with some support from the institution. So the two main ways that support manifests is in giving us a space to work. So which is in fact in the building we're working in now, as far as I know. Uh, and the second is some amount of funding so that you're not blocked by the very basics of getting your setup up and going. Like whether that's machines for like developing software, or if you're building like a more deep tech idea, you need some equipment or some processes to run that you need to pay for. Nirman will help you with that to allow.
Fair enough. I mean, when you are starting up, even a small AWS bill can feel like
Exactly. So partnerships with AWS for credits, like Nirman gave us like $25,000 of credits, which was super helpful. Just so that again, you're not worrying about the things that you shouldn't be worrying about. You should just focus on what you actually have to build. And again, because it's like a cohort-based program, you're with other really motivated students who may not even be your batchmates. Like we had MS scholars, PhD scholars, or juniors, seniors. So a lot of varied people building varied products. But the one common thread is they're all super motivated and all trying to do this like to the best of their abilities. So that environment was really good. It's like this IITM environment is already really good. And you take a subset of it of like people who are super motivated and just trying to build a company, that really helps because you have a sounding board to bounce off ideas. It's a very emotional journey, like trying to build a startup. So you make like some of your best friends as well at Minmart.
I want to just say, reflect here a bit that, I feel like, by the way, coincidentally, I was involved in the setup of CFI many years back.
Oh,
My
nice. I had no idea.
and my MTech project was the document, the blueprint for CFI.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's really
it's
cool.
really long back. I did get a great grade,
Oh, I feel like now it's so supportive that you would have gotten a great grade.
but that doesn't matter. The idea that you're saying that I could do that,
Right.
because I'm
Yeah.
spending so much time.
Exactly. You were still rewarded for your time. Like it still made sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't have to focus on two.
Touring, we raised amongst the three, four of us, we did like 150 odd credits, yeah, in Desklamp, which is like a quarter of a BTech basically, yeah, which is pretty insane that they were that supportive and helped us through that whole.
So when students outside think that I will go to a place like IIT because it's a sounding board, it's a stepping stone for me to go to Microsoft or Adobe or go to Stanford where there's a great environment, they don't realize that it's already
Yeah,
there.
oh, 100%. It's already here. I think that should be the main draw to come to IITM, that whatever you want to pursue, there is both the opportunity available and most likely someone who's also pursuing that, which is great. Like you're never going to be alone on that journey.
Yeah, and that's fantastic. It's a great point for us to stop. It was a great conversation. I'm so happy that I met you. I think youngest guest on.
Yeah, that's a nice little.
Do you want to, because I mean, maybe we touched upon a little bit, but you have two co-founders who are also very young. I think, are they younger than you?
They are the same age as me.
Yeah.
They graduated 1 year later because they were in a 5-year program. But yeah, they're like absolutely amazing. Couldn't have asked for better friends or co-founders.
And are they also comic book nerds?
Not as much as me, but yeah, they're nerds in their own respective ways.
And
Akash is like a jack of all trades. Like if you ask him what does he do to relax, he plays the violin, he plays tennis. He's like the perfect CEO in terms of he does everything. Like he's good at everything. Uh, Neil is he comes from like a business background, so I really love that about him. Like it's like in his DNA, he negotiates. It's amazing. Like just so even when I have to procure software or do anything that involves negotiation with someone, even if it's hiring an employee, I just comfortably offload it to Neil because I know like that's something that he is excels at. Neil and I have a love of watching really bad movies. So sometimes we'll just sit and watch like the worst like movies, yeah. Like we saw Deshdrohi, I don't know if you've heard.
I was going to say Hum Saath Saath Hai.
Hum Saath Saath Hai. Oh no, you can go way lower than that.
Oh.
Hum Saath Saath Hai is rookie bad. There are way worse movies out there. Yeah, that's like something we do often to relax. He's a pretty social guy too, so he goes out with like a lot of his friends and yeah,
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing so much.
had a lovely time.
Yeah, great. Awesome. That was Prajwal. Thank you for watching the Best Place to Build podcast. As usual, like, share, subscribe. I say it every time. I'm going to say it again till you do it. Like, share, subscribe.